فَلَمَّا حَمَلَتْ كَانَ حَمْلُهَا بِهَا عِنْدَ نَفْسِهَا الْغُلَامِ. And so Hannah then draws the conclusion from this revelation, she draws the conclusion that it must be this child. Right? This child that's in my belly, that's the one that Allah is talking about. But if you look at the words, He didn't say that it's this particular child. He said, I'm going to give you a child who is a male and has all these qualities. Right? That doesn't necessarily have to be your direct child, it can be your grandchild as well. And that's what ends up being the case. That's not the actual child that's born to Hannah, but rather the child of that child is Isa alayhi salam, who has all these qualities. Okay? Okay. And this is why, it's because of this then, like she knows this from before, she knows that Allah's promised this, because her husband, who's a prophet, who's truthful, has told her. She's certain that it's going to happen. Allah never fails in His promises. When He promises something, if you break a promise, you only break a promise if you're either lying about it or you're too weak to fulfill it. Allah's neither of the case. Neither of those is true for Allah. And so He always fulfills His promises. When He's promised it, she knows it's going to take place. At first she's surprised. She is surprised because she has this expectation that this is the child. When she sees it's a girl, and at first she said, oh, it's Allah, I gave birth to a girl, sorry. Right? She's almost apologizing for it, and being, she's regretful that it's a girl, that's not the one that she expected. But immediately she turns around and says, Inni samaytuha Maryam. Right? I name her Maryam, and she prays for the dhurriya, the offspring of this child. Right? So she knows that it's either this child or the offspring of the child, so she immediately starts praying for the offspring. It's amazing how strong her trust is in Allah. We're promised by Allah all the time. Not directly, unfortunately we don't have, or fortunately or unfortunately, we don't get direct revelation, but the Quran has so many promises in there for us. We claim to believe that the Quran is true, it's the word of God, and these promises are promises to us that Allah will fulfill. Inna Allah la yukhliful mi'ad. Allah never fails in His promises. But our lives don't really indicate that we take those promises seriously. He asks us, for instance, to have taqwa. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. We run into dead ends all the time, and sometimes we look to everyone else and every means other than God to try to find some way out. And He says if we turn to Him, right? وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Allah is sufficient for anyone who relies on Him. Right, so we don't necessarily take His promises that seriously, but these people do. These awliya of Allah, these people are really close to Allah. They take Him very, very seriously, and they live by the word of God. Okay. Let's look at the second verse. Then when she bore what was in her womb and realized it was a girl, she said, My Lord, I have borne a female child. Right. Then in parentheses, like Allah, kind of as a side note, He says, of course God knew better what she had borne. Right? She's not informing Him of something. Right? She doesn't feel like she's telling Allah anything. She knows Allah knows better. But she expresses this almost as an agony, right? In this regret, saying, oh, Allah, it's a girl. Not because girls are bad, or because she didn't think a girl was good enough, or any of those sorts of things. She's not one of those Jahili Arabs that would get all upset and whose faces would turn all change colors and contort when they found out they had a girl child. They'd go bury her alive. None of that. Hannah's definitely not like that. That's not why she's regretful that it's a girl. It's simply because she expected that it was going to be a boy in Allah's service, and now she's regretful that I can't fulfill my oath. I promised that this child would be in the service of God, and now I'm afraid I can't fulfill it because it's not the tradition that girls can enter the service of God. Right? So it's only because of that, not because she feels badly about girls or any of those sorts of things. Then she says, then Allah adds, He says that what it says is, لَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. Literally it says, the male is not like the female. Okay. What does that mean? Male is not like the female. If you just look at that without the parentheses that I've added in there, and it seems to be at first glance, it almost seems like to be a chauvinistic sort of a statement. Right? Girls aren't as good as boys. Right? But if you look at it more carefully, that's not what it's saying at all. There's one question that the commentators have kind of gone back and forth about. Again, Allah Ta'ala shows His strength by coming to a really solid conclusion. A lot of people think that this is a continuation of Hannah's statement. That Hannah is saying, لَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. The boy is not like the girl. Right? Indicating that, I expected a boy who was good, and now I've gotten this girl who's second class. Right? That's not the case at all. If you think about this situation, say you have some expectation. Let's think of a scenario. I remember this Lamborghini that we saw yesterday when we were coming home from the airport. There's this Lamborghini in front of us, and that stuck in my mind. He was like revving and trying to get ahead of everyone with this really powerful engine, and he would race to the next stoplight. Right? He'd race, make a lot of noise, and he'd have to stop, and the people stop. It was a useless a futile sort of effort that he had. But the Lamborghini stuck in my head. I was thinking, like, say somebody promises you a gift of a car, right? And you have this expectation that's going to be this Lamborghini, but he ends up giving you a Mustang or something. Right? It's not quite as good as the Lamborghini. Now, when you want to express this to him, what will you say? Will you say let's see, the Lamborghini is not as good as the Mustang? You wouldn't say it like that. You would say this Mustang is not like the Lamborghini. And the Lamborghini is what I had in mind, right? This Mustang it's not like that. The way we say that statement, we always put the better thing after the like. This is not like that, right? The first thing we mentioned is always the lower of the two, and the second thing is always the better of the two. Right? What does she say? Assume this Hannah's statement. لَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. The boy is not as good as the girl. Right? It doesn't make any sense. She got the girl, and we're expecting that she should say, this girl that I've gotten is not nearly as good as the boy I expected. Right? So if Hannah had said this statement, she should have said it backwards. لَيْسَتِ الْأُنْثَى كَالذَّكَرِ. This girl that I've gotten is not as good as the boy that I expected. But the fact that she has, the statement says, لَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, the boy is not like the girl, it shows it can't be her statement. It doesn't make any sense for her, in her position, being disappointed, that she should say something like that. It's a little bit of a complicated thing, you might have to think about it. But the bottom line is that if it had been Hannah's statement, it should have been backwards. This girl is not as good as a boy. But the statement says, no, the boy is not as good as the girl. Right? This is Allah telling her, comforting her, and saying that it's true. We promised you a boy. You expected a boy, right? You had this expectation of a boy. This boy, that boy that you expected, is nothing compared to the girl that we have given you. It's actually a value.